All right, my friends, welcome to the RPG Backlog. This is ProfPlaysGames, Larry from the Prof and Dev Play Games podcast, and we are here starting a new arc. We just finished the Final Fantasy XII arc, which was, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and now we are embarking on Undertale. And I've got Scott here, who's going to play through the game with me. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
My name is Scott, and I love games. I've played D&D since I was like a young kid. I had an older brother who was DMing, just like for us neighborhood kids. And I was always into computers. And, I was playing computer role-playing games from, the mid-'80s or so. And I just love all different kinds of games, tabletop, board games, computer games, but especially, role-playing games.
What CRPGs were you playing back in the 80s?
I think my first real RPG was Ultima 3.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you've played the Ultima games at all.
I haven't, but I've read a lot about them.
Yeah. So Ultima 3 was like a really kind of like basic RPG for the time where there wasn't like any role playing. It was really just, you had your fantasy classes and your characters and you build a group and you'd go and fight monsters and go into dungeons and stuff. But that was like the closest you could get at the time. Like early 80s, I think. I'm not sure when it came out, but it was great. And then like Ultima 4 was the first one that actually had this whole story about how you're a person from the real world who was transported to this fantasy world, and you had to get back, but to get back you had to become the avatar, and you had to embody these 8 virtues, and you had to kind of recruit this, all these different companions, and you had to, do all these things to become like the avatar of truth and justice and sacrifice and humility. And then you had to get, the bell book. It wasn't even like you had to buy it. There was no end boss. You just had to, go and do these various fetch quests. And then there's this ritual with a bell, book, and candle. And that would take you back to your world.
Oh, that's interesting. So the idea was just to get out of there as opposed to have some sort of climactic final battle.
Right, yeah. And I think it was the first game that I had seen where the start of the game has you going into a tarot reader's wagon. It's the Roma wagon. I mean, in those days. But they ask you tarot questions using the tarot, and then based on your answers, that determines what class you are.
Well, that's interesting. So you didn't get to choose. You're basically like how you answer determines what they're going to tell you are. Oh, that's interesting. I guess you could game that where like if you had a guide or whatever, be like, say these answers and you get a rogue or whatever. Is that how that probably?
Yeah. I mean, once you played the game, then you would know like, this is like this virtue, which is tied to this class.
Right.
And that sort of thing, which, now is like, kind of like when you go to like the Bethesda games, they have this, this process where you like get asked questions and things, and that determines. But they always these days, like, you gotta like, are you sure? Is this what you want?
Yeah, and there it was like, no, we're just telling you this is everything. You're stuck with this class.
Yeah,
I think it reminds me of Fallout 4. I think where you're staring in the mirror as your avatar and answering. Aren't you answering questions there?
I'm playing New Vegas right now, so I played the original.
God, Scott,
Fallout
we should have chosen New Vegas. Is
that in your backlog?
I was about to start it, and I was like, no, we're going to do Undertale.
Oh, really?
That's hilarious. That's really funny because I've been watching the show, and I'm like,
exactly. Yeah,
I need to, like everyone else, let's get back into Fallout.
Right.
How far are you into? How far are you into New Vegas?
I mean, I don't know. I can tell you how many hours I played.
That's what I mean. Yeah, how many hours you played?
Where is it? New Vegas. I played 20 hours.
Okay, so you're pretty far in.
Yeah.
Wow, that's hilarious. That's funny.
I played Fallout 1 and 2 back then, like on my Commodore 64, and then I had never played the Bethesda ones at all. And
so you haven't played 3 or 4? This one's your first one of those?
No, I played 3 now.
Oh, okay, got it.
But I watched the show and I was like, and then someone said, you can get all the Fallout games for $25. And I was like, well, how could you refuse that?
Yeah. Exactly. Pretty good price.
So I just finished 3 and let's see, I think 97 hours.
In 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Vegas, I'm at 20 hours.
Oh my God, I was so worried about imposing on your time to have like a 7 to 9 hour RPG with Undertale. So I'm no longer worried. That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. So many people have dived into Fallout after watching the show, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like you watch the show, and like I said, I played the earlier games, and I was like, oh, that feels just like reminded me of it. And I was like, oh, I want more of that.
Yeah, I thought the show did really well to be like, it really felt like the next iteration of Fallout, where like this is the next, Fallout 5 or whatever. Like there's the main quest, there's the side quests, people getting, NPCs and weird ass shit from the NPCs. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you played 3 and 4, but you haven't played New Vegas.
I have not played New Vegas. Yeah, I played 3, and then I did not finish 4. I probably got 20 hours into 4 and just petered off, which was part of the reason why I'm excited about this project, because it makes me stick with the games. I've had very bad experiences where I will play 50, 80% of a game, and then just like the new shiny comes out, and I move on to the next thing, and I don't finish. So this year has been finishing old games. I finished Elden Ring, finishing Final Fantasy 16, and then trying to start and finish other things in my backlog.
Yeah.
So
Elden Ring is tough, right? I haven't played it, but I've heard that it's very tough.
Elden Ring is so interesting because it's the first FromSoft game, like the Souls game, that I got into, and for probably
was it Dark Souls?
Yeah, so Dark Souls 2, Demon Souls was first, I think, Dark Souls 3, and then Bloodborne, Sekiro, and then Elden Ring.
Okay.
But all my friends got into it, and we were playing, not together, but we were playing at the same time. And then I just got stuck at the cap midway, 60% through the game, and just got stuck and kind of put it away. I was also, it's very dark too, so I had to move on to something brighter. But when I came back, I just couldn't get back into it, and it was hard. And then my friend, who was just on the Final Fantasy 12 podcast, Travis, I summoned him into my game. He helped me get through that little bit, and then I took the rest of the game myself until the final boss, which was literally impossible to me with my melee build. So I called in, I summoned someone else, and they helped me finish it, and I rolled credits. So I felt good. The difficulty is hard, but they've put that summoning mechanic in where you can bring in somebody else who, is way stronger than you and can help you get through that piece that you're stuck on, and then you can get to the next piece and enjoy that next section. Elden Ring.
So you can turn from single player into multiplayer.
Basically, yeah, because you can summon one person. Yeah, you summon one person into your world, and there's like some parameters on it where you have to have certain items, and you're limited. What happened? There was some sort of limit where he was. Yeah. So he's way higher than my level, but I think he had to stay within 5. He got significantly debuffed, so he lost like half his. Yeah, exactly. He lost half his health and half his magic pool or whatever, but still, it was. 2 of us together were able to take down the next boss, and then I can move on. So yeah, it made it a lot easier. I put 83 hours into that game. No, 87 or so total over. Really, it took me about 2 years. I get to play. I usually play like an hour a night after everyone's gone to bed, and then so I work my way slowly through things.
Yeah. It's hard to find time. My daughter is almost 12. It's like now she's a little more independent, and I actually have the time to do these things. But for years, I just didn't have like the energy or the time to.
Yep. That's where I'm at. I mean, she's 6, so there's it's a lot of family time, but then just a bunch of work. So work and then family time, and then everyone's asleep around 9:30. So then I get like 9:30 to 10:30, and then I start getting sleepy. So it's like I'm struggling. Like, please God, let me stay till 11 tonight.
Yeah.
So especially like I'm playing a text-heavy RPG right now. Not Undertale, obviously I haven't started yet, but I'm playing a 1000X Resist, and there's a lot of reading games at night. I start to fall asleep. So yeah, it's a tough life trying to play games. But I'm
what
glad
game
you
is
got.
it?
It's called 1000X Resist, and it just came out like a week ago. I was thinking about recommending it to you. It deals with kind of like the aftermath of a pandemic, where there's only one person who survived it, and then they're cloned. And I was like, oh, this is a pandemic game. And then it turns into like a diaspora game where there's the Asian diaspora that comes from, or Hong Kong specifically, that comes from Hong Kong, and the politics of people who've been here for a while from that diaspora and people who are just coming and assimilation. And there's it's very political, but there's a huge pandemic component to it. That is like, it may be interesting to you, or it may be like, no, I definitely don't want to play this for that reason.
No, I don't mind. I know like some people like my wife are just like, I don't want to see it in shows. I don't want to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But I don't mind. I find it, I like it when games sort of reflect the themes of like everyday reality, and sort of have that, I don't know, like political stuff, especially.
Yeah, this one's very political, but I too just love a prism to kind of experience what we're experiencing now. Maybe a little bit later, because like I don't know, have you played The Last of Us? It was a PlayStation game.
I watched the show.
Okay, so same idea. So basically the fungal pandemic or whatever hits. But The Last of Us 2 came out right at the beginning of the pandemic, where like this decimated world following a pandemic, and I was like, I absolutely cannot play this game, and I didn't play it for years. So I understand the getting some distance.
Right. Right at the time, it was too raw, but now you have
exactly. Yeah, but I thought of you because I was like thinking about us recording tonight and how we met, which is we were both at a theater and you were wearing the same mask that I wear, and I just came up to you and like, we're going to be friends, man.
I've never seen anyone else wear a flow mask.
No, exactly.
So I was like, oh, and then your wife knew my wife, and that was kind of.
Isn't that interesting?
Meant to be, yeah.
Yeah. So when I saw you, I was like, I have to go talk to him.
Right.
So and there we go. Now we're here.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about. Well, we're not going to talk about Undertale now. We're going to talk about just games in general. But we are going to play through Undertale. Undertale came out in 2015. It's an indie game by Toby Fox. The basic premise is a kid falls into the underground, under the surface of the earth, and tries to get back out. And there are different ways to get back out. There are famously a couple of paths to get back out, which I probably won't dig into if you don't know about them. So I will ask you, what do you know about this game?
I am completely going in blind. I have no idea.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Then I will say no more. There's a couple of things that I know that would be interesting, but I will leave them how they are. Yeah. But it's really, I don't know if simple graphics is the right word, but it's, 2D pixel art kind of game. That I think the guy did his own soundtrack for the game by Toby Fox. It says right here he used FL Studio to make the game, which is a DAW. I use a different one. I use Reaper, which is the descendant of Winamp. If you ever used Winamp, the folks made Winamp, sold it, and then started making Reaper, which is what I make my music in. But yeah, it scored really well when it came out. It's been very well received. I think the Metacritic overall was in the low 90s. And people just have continued to talk about this game in podcasts. I listen to a lot of gaming podcasts, especially RPG podcasts, and it's always coming up as reference, and it's always been a hole in my gaming knowledge. So I wanted to hit it. And after Final Fantasy 12, which was like 53 hours for me, I wanted something a little shorter.
Yeah, I've only ever played, I think, 7.
Final Fantasy 7, the original?
Yeah, like that was like the PlayStation game, right? Or PS2?
Back in the 90s. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't know, I played Phantasy Star 2 on the Sega.
Oh, cool. The Saturn, I think? Was that the Saturn, or was that the...
No, the Sega Master System.
Oh, the Master System. Oh, we're going way back. Okay, got it.
Yeah, the original Phantasy Star was the first exposure I had to JRPGs. I remember liking Phantasy Star, but Final Fantasy 7, man, I just want to walk from one point to the other without getting attacked.
Yes, random encounters kind of suck.
Every 5, you can't go anywhere. It's like I want to explore, I want to look around, but then I didn't want to look around because you get stuck in this battle, and there's always the animations, and it takes forever, and I never finished that.
Yeah, so I didn't play Final Fantasy VII, the original one, until the pandemic, actually, 2020. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go to it. And they re-released it on PlayStation 4, which is what I had at the time. And they made it so you can speed up, and then you can turn off random encounters. So I definitely did that. Yeah, I definitely did that. I got out of Midgar, I got into the open world, got to Fort Junon, is that what it's called? And then I stopped there. I was just... I had my fill and bounced on to the next new shiny. I just finished the remake of Final Fantasy VII, so the opening Midgar section, and just fell in love with it. That was this year. That was one of the backlog games that I'd had forever that I was like, I need to, finish or play this so that I have some fluency with that, and I just fell in love with the characters. So,
how long did you say it took you to finish it?
45 to 50 hours. I just I did all the side stuff. Wow. I think I could have mainlined it. I think if you mainline it, it's more like 32 hours or so.
That's not bad. I remember thinking that it was like way too long and convoluted and big.
Well,
but
this is true. That is true. I mean, they took it's like a 50-hour game that they then turned into a 40-hour game, and then the new one that came out this year, Rebirth, is like 60 or 70, and there's still one more to go. So,
I mean, I spent 100 hours in Fallout 3, so obviously I don't mind long games. I think it was just the tedium of the encounters in that one.
Yeah, and in the remake, they're not random encounters.
Right.
So they're there on the overfield, just like 12. But it's random encounters, man. I really don't like them.
I mean, in moderation, I don't know. I think they're okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see that for me, it's about like the grind. So in my experience, at least, the RPGs that rely on random encounters so much is like you really have to grind to get to the next part of the game or whatever. And it just time gates things a little bit too much for me because of my, I don't know, lack of patience or my inability to not get distracted by the next new thing.
Right. I mean, it's tricky balance. Like if they're required for the XP or loot or whatever to get to the next area, then it becomes like an obligation or a burden.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the issue.
What was your first computer RPG?
Good Lord. What was my first? What would we consider my first computer RPG? Like CRPG specifically, boy. I mean, I'm going back to Diablo, and I don't even know if that counts because that's an ARPG, but Diablo 1 on the PC.
I mean, sure, I think that counts. I mean, that was like descended from the NetHacks and rogues that were like text-based versions of like D&D, but like Ultima 3, like, they were just very basic.
Just going down into the dungeon lower and lower and lower. I never beat it. My cousin and I got really into playing that game. So that's my first experience playing RPGs, and then Diablo 2, when it released, I got it on release because I was so excited because we had such a good time. I had such good memories of Diablo, and then Diablo 2, I lost my life to Diablo 2. That was right at the beginning of college for me. It's in my sophomore year, I think, and just played the shit out of it, and then came home for the summer with my cousin who I grew up playing games with, and that's all we did all summer. We no-lifed Diablo 2 throughout that whole summer, and it was...
Blizzard games in the 90s, that was like the big thing. They were just so amazing. They were like, the cinematics and just the gameplay was always like very finely tuned. And
Diablo 2 really refined. I mean, it added so much to Diablo, the original Diablo formula. And then even with the games that came after, like I beat 3 and just didn't really, it was all right. And I've played and have not, completed 4 at all. Like 2 is the one that it just got it right in my view. So that I'm thinking about other RPGs from that time. I didn't really get into RPGs in my early gaming life. It was only when I came back. So I played games up until finishing college, and then went away to the Peace Corps, did grad school, and then came back here and got a PC for work and played just Team Fortress 2. I played a multiplayer game. That was kind of all I played until around 2015 when I got a PS4 and then started digging into, the new games that were coming out. And Witcher 3 is the one that came out in 2015 that I've always loved reading fantasy literature. And I'd just been reading reviews of this game right on release. And I was like, wow, there's games that are like the books that I love reading. I didn't realize at the time that there were a series of Witcher books which were exactly that. And then I absolutely, like, head over heels fell in love with Witcher 3. The story, I could not stop playing that game, digging through all the side quests, the character moments between Triss and Yen and Geralt. And when I finished, I was just like, it was like an epiphany that games could be like this. I was telling my friends who were like really hardcore gamers, and they're like, so have you played Mass Effect? I'm like, no, what is Mass Effect? And then I went to Mass Effect after that, and I was like, oh my God, there are more games like this. Mass Effect 2 being one of my favorite games of all time, and just then it was off to the races.
Right, like you missed like decades of.
I did. I absolutely did. And thinking about my early life, my attention span was not good enough to stick with like Final Fantasy, the original. And I'm trying to think of any other RPGs I had for the Nintendo or Super Nintendo, because those are the only consoles I had.
Probably had Zelda, right? If you had the Nintendo.
I did, but I never, again, with the original Zelda, I played that a lot and never got past, maybe like the third or fourth dungeon. I just would always get stuck. And then Link to the Past, I had in the Super Nintendo, same thing. I would get stuck. So I don't know if it was my brain power, if it was my patience, trading the console with my brother, where I'd play for a little bit, then it was his turn, so I'd go do something else and come back and forget where I was.
Right.
So
that's the thing about RPGs, right? Like that's why I never really was playing games for a long time, because I didn't have the attention. Like you have to like keep so much stuff in your head.
You do, yeah.
Especially back then. Like back then, you didn't have auto mapping and quest tracking, and you had to like write things down.
Yeah,
or just remember them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's no guide, great. No game facts online, no guidebook with you. And I think that's a benefit to me now, where like I was saying with Elden Ring earlier, but other games too, even Final Fantasy 12. Like, thank God I had Anthony to help me through some pieces of that, to like where to think to go next. But also the guide, just to go to a guide, to go to a friend and just say, okay, I'm here, I'm stuck. Okay, here's a tip for how to get out of there, and then. Right. You get past that friction point, and then it's another 3, 4, 5 hours of just I'm good to go, and then you hit that point again. Whereas earlier in life, I'd hit that point, have nowhere to turn, and be like, all right, I'm done. I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to be doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I remember. Me and my friends used to play. Aside from like the Ultimas, there was like Bard's Tale. There was the D&D Gold Box games by SSI. But we used to like have graph paper and map. Like the dungeons.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
Because they were so convoluted, and there's no, like I said, there's no auto mapping or anything. So you had to map it out yourself.
Right. To know how you can get back out or go to a different area. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Bard's Tale had these spinners in the dungeon where it would change your direction but not tell you.
Oh, that's
there's no visual representation.
So then you get super lost.
Yeah, it screws up your mapping.
So I know like the easy answer is that quality of life improvements now make gaming easier, but I wonder do you miss some of that, like tactile manual, had to sort through it yourself, making maps on graph paper, or are you glad to have like a map overlay on your game now?
That's a really good question. I mean, it's a different experience, right? As someone who is older and has a family and a full-time job, I appreciate all, like, not even just the in-game shortcuts, but also all the stuff on the internet. Like you said, like, you get stuck and you look online, you're like, oh, okay, this is how I get out of this situation. Whereas before you didn't have anything. You didn't have anything in the game or out of the game for the most part. And it's gotten gradually more user-friendly, which is handy, but I don't know, with like Fallout, for example, because I've been playing that. The quests are like, go find this person. And I can just look on the Pip-Boy and it'll tell me like exactly where that person is.
Right.
Which is great because I don't have to go like, pixel hunting or whatever. I don't have to go searching through this giant world for this one person. But at the same time, it sort of takes the thrill of discovery or that sense of achievement of finding something you were looking for. It takes that away.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, it's something that came across to me early on with Witcher 3, where with the minimap. So the minimap's there, and it shows where your person is, then it shows the yellow line to get to your person. So I found that instead of looking at the world as I was walking or riding through it, I would just stare at the minimap and follow that yellow line, and I was missing out. So then I just turned it off. Turned off the minimap, got a little lost, but I was missing the visuals. I was missing like... I'd been in Ukraine. At that point, it had been 8 years because I did Peace Corps. So The Witcher 3 is set, it's a Polish story. So it felt middle, it felt Eastern European. And I just wanted to, I think that's part of the reason why that resonated so much with me, because I was like, I'm back in Ukraine, but like in like the medieval times, and like I'm digging this fantasy story that I love this thing. But then I was staring at the minimap. I was like, this is not it. So, yeah. Yeah, quality of life for sure, but you're missing something, I think. But it is nice, like you say, not a lot of time, full-time job, family, whatever. So I sit down, I have an hour of gaming. If that whole hour of gaming, I make no progress, I'm just lost and don't know what I'm doing. It's kind of a frustrating hour-long experience. So
yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like I started playing World of Warcraft when it came out, like in the mid-aughts, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like early on, there were a lot of technical problems and there was, bugs or whatever, but there's grinding and there was a lot of just waiting for spawns and things. But I don't know, there was sort of this achievement to having done it,
Mm-hmm.
And I quit for a while and came back. And they had, just over time, they become more and more user friendly. And then when I came back, it was just, you just have to like go around, like, it felt very, I don't know, it felt too easy.
Yeah, the rough edges have been sanded off completely, where it's just like a smooth, slick experience.
Right. I was like, it just didn't have the same, I don't know, it didn't fulfill that same need I had, I guess, it didn't fill me up in the same way.
Yeah. I can totally see that. My thing with gaming, like having those experiences and walking away or whatever and trying to come back, and again, like those touchstones in my life, Witcher 3, Mass Effect 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, like are such a, I don't know, like immersive experience that is almost like a gamer's high. I kind of equate it to a runner's high, where when I'm running, you get to that point where like, oh, there's that runner's high. That's that feeling that I'm chasing. Mm-hmm. When I finish a good book or finish a good game, I immediately want the next one that's just like that. And it's so hard to find the next experience that replicates that feeling of just like being that immersed in that. For me, at least, it's story and character. Finding story and character that's that engaging is not always easy.
Yeah.
But
actually, I don't know, with the immersiveness, like that's what I love about the role-playing games, is you can really just feel yourself sort of inhabiting this world.
Yeah.
And these characters, and it's hard to pull off, I think, for the games. The writing, there's like writing and has to be there, and the voice acting and the environments. But yeah, when you hit that, I don't know, for me that's, if like I said, there's like this sort of high to it. I don't know.
It really is, and it's I wonder, like when I'm looking at new games, I'm thinking like, is this the one that's going to give that to me? And then it doesn't, and then it's ultimately disappointing that I put it down. And looking back on my gaming history that's littered with unfinished games, like was that it? There was Anthony, the dev, gave us I'll send it to you. I'll put it in Discord for you to take a look at too. But it's a gaming motivation test that their studio uses. They take it every year just to like calibrate why the team plays games. And I can't remember the nodes exactly, but it was like it's like imagine a circle, and around the perimeter of the circle at every, I don't know, 70 degrees or so, there's a dot that represents something. One is like immersion, one is achievement, one is difficulty. I can't remember all the other ones. One's social. And if you answer highly on several of those polls, basically, like your histogram, maybe that's the wrong word, but the image kind of pulls closer to the perimeter the more you answer. And like Anthony and Travis, they had their answers were such that they had like 6 or 7 categories that were really important for the motivation, and mine was literally just one. It was immersion, like as much as it could go to immersion. So instead of looking like a star, it just looked like this weird ass diamond thing. So then it really kind of changed. This was recently that I took it, and I look back at all the games that those touchstones for me are the ones that I put aside, and it's like they were not immersive, and I put them aside, or they were immersive and I could not stop. I wanted to just live in that world. So
that's so interesting that it makes sense that the game companies would have that sort of those metrics, I guess.
Yeah, it's really cool. He didn't dig into exactly what they then did with the data, but I just kind of assume like, if you're into X, Y, or Z, like, let's make sure that the games you're working on are those things. Like, you're working on something that hits your values as a gamer too.
Right.
But he works at System Arrow, who does he works on Astroneer. So they have a specific type of game that they make. So.
Right. I don't know if there's for role playing games or tabletop games. There's a sort of historian, Robin D. Laws, who like codified the 7 types of RPG players, and like
Okay.
like the same thing. Like you have different levels of the different categories, depending on what you want out of the RPGs. And it's sort of like a way to try and make people, if you have a group, you have different people who like different things, and it's helpful to know like who likes what in terms of like creating the story, and who do you like, what do you actually put in it to cater to your players.
To like keep them engaged, or to.
Oh yeah, so the categories are the power gamer, it's you're like min-maxer.
Yeah, sure.
The butt kicker, they just want to like kill things. The tactician is thinking more about like strategy. The specialist favors a particular character type, which he plays in every campaign in every setting.
Yeah,
I've known a few players like that. Usually it's ninja that they want to play. The method actor, the storyteller, and then the casual gamer is just like someone who shows up, like your friend who's just like, oh yeah, I'll play with you guys.
Yeah.
It sounds like you'd be sort of like a storyteller, or maybe method actor. That you want to.
That's hilarious, because when you said all these things, I was thinking in my head, I am definitely the storyteller. That's the only reason why I show up to these things. I joined a friend's D&D. I did a one shot with them, and that was a lot of fun. So then I joined their campaign. But I joined their campaign. They had been going on for years, and I joined for maybe a couple months. And I was like, it's hard to get into the story with you because you've been doing it for so long, and I don't know, the background, the lore, or whatever else.
Right. Yeah, that's hard to come in the middle of it because they have all this shared history, even just within that campaign.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you think that for Undertale having like, a more primitive interface, do you think that will get in the way of, finding it immersive?
I wonder the same thing. I have been asking myself that. How am I going to find that in this? Because the way that people talk about it and revere it is that they've found that with the characters. And I think that I don't need a story or a game to look like the highest budget for me to get into the characters, because I've gotten into games where it's just writing. The writing is what's important. For me, it really just depends on how these characters are written more than what it looks like. Okay. What about you? Does that turn you off or push you away?
I was curious, because the way you were describing your experience, you didn't really start gaming until the graphics were actually pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you took a break and came back when they were even better. Like now they're spectacular. Yep. But I started gaming like Ultima was like 16-bit tile based. Just like bit graphics. I think probably a lot like Undertale. So I'm used to playing these kinds of games, or even like text games. Like they had like these text adventure games where you just type in like "Go West," and then it would say "You see a church." Those things aren't barriers for me because I have that same requirement for the immersion, the storytelling, but also I really just want to explore. I want to see everything. I want to try different possibilities. I want to test the limits of the thing and see all the nooks and crannies. Like that's one of the things that I really like about, especially like the larger open world games, is just the ability to go around and do whatever.
Yeah, I think about like how Ubisoft has changed Assassin's Creed, for example, where it was kind of more straightforward action adventure third person, and then Origins came out, which was set in Egypt, but then Odyssey came out, which was set in Greece, and that was like a huge open world RPG in the Assassin's Creed skin. And I just 130 hours in that game, exploring everything I could go find and do and just get totally lost in the world, even if I wasn't finishing a quest or working on a quest or anything, and just feeling the exploration. Kind of the same thing with Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and even Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring. Where it's just like, there's a thing over there. Just go over there and see what there is. And
right, like you can go and discover like new things, or things that are new to you anyway.
Yeah, and that's been, especially the Zelda games that I mentioned. Just what the hell is over there? That looks interesting. There's always something there. And the same thing with Baldur's Gate 3, where it wasn't necessarily like a hidden area so much as like there's story over there. Go over there and see what the story is. Yeah. So, and that
I feel like that to me sort of recreates, because like I said, I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons and different role playing games, and that feeling of like it's an open space and you can go and do things, recreates that feeling for me. Like that, I don't know, my inner 8-year-old or whatever is able to like engage with that, and it brings back that feeling.
Yeah, and it's been when the pandemic hit, we were just in the house, so I really fell into playing games with friends, but also playing. I picked up Disco Elysium during that time, and just other action adventure games or whatever. Not Breath of the Wild, but struggling to remember which other ones I'm thinking of. But the ability to explore when I couldn't go out and explore, and be able to live that kind of life was super helpful for me. So
I can see that.
Yeah, and then Discord too. I mean, I set up this Discord during that time, and just like my friends and I we still do just talk games all the time, but then just jump in one of these voice channels and just play while we're talking to each other.
Right,
helped a lot. So.
Yeah, Disco Elysium is one of the games that I started playing and then I got stuck and never finished.
So Disco Elysium, I started playing. It was summer of 2020. If I recall correctly. And I got to the part where like the characters or the whatever is hanging in the tree, and you're supposed to get that character.
Yeah. And there's like, how do you get the tree down? How do you get the guy down from the tree?
I stopped playing. I was like, I can't get this fucker down off the tree.
Me too.
And then I looked up a guide, and I was like, okay. And then I just followed the guide to get the goddamn guy out of the tree, and then moved on. And then there was 2 more times in the game where there's another similar thing. Where I'm like, I've tried everything. I have no idea what to do. It's so obtuse here. And then I just followed the guide to get past that thing. And then God, it was 2 summers ago when summer of 2022, where I came back to it and put in 15 hours and I'm probably an hour and a half away from the end, and I put it down again. I need to go back and finish it. But yeah, I got the exact same part, and you had to like shoot the rope. If I recall correctly, you have to shoot the rope for it to drop down, but that's a vague memory.
I have tried like everything I could think of except for look at a guide, like within the game, and I could not figure out how to get that damn guy off the damn tree.
And it feels, at a certain point, I was like, okay, this is just because I'm an idiot. Obviously, there's some sort of like really smart game logic here, but I don't believe the answer was that. I believe the answer was just some obtuse thing.
Right.
So yeah, maybe check that up. I think it was shooting the rope, because the writing in that game is incredible. Incredible.
That's the strangest RPG I think I've ever played.
Isn't it weird that you're talking to yourself and leveling up different like aspects of your own personality?
Yeah. Boy. Very unique.
Totally. And it's so sad what happened to Zaum, which was the studio that just like disintegrated under.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they're done. You're never going to get another one. Oh, no. Yeah, it really sucks. If you look into the saga of Zaum, ZA/UM, it's over, which sucks. But Disco Elysium is like one of the most unique games I've ever played, and I should probably get back to it this year and finish it. Roll credits on it. That's part of my project. Cool. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was looking at the store page in Steam, and there's like new localizations coming out for it. So someone's doing something.
Really? Oh, that's surprising to me. That's cool.
Yeah, I'll have to read up on that.
Yeah, I guess I worry more about a sequel. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's such like a unique thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was something else like Undertale, where someone's like, "Oh, you got to play this." You talk to your inner parts of yourself, and it's
interesting. Okay.
And that's why I ended up buying it when it was on sale somewhere. I had that damn guy in the tree.
Yep, that's funny. That was the same spot. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where I put it down.
That's like a common problem in RPGs where the storyteller thinks that the answer is very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Even like tabletop games, like the DM thinks like, oh, of course, they can figure out this puzzle, and the players are like totally obsessed with some thing that's not even part of the situation.
Not even related. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you looking over in that corner? There's nothing there. Like, fuck. Well, then move your answer to the puzzle into this corner, please, because we're not leaving it. We have some of doing some puzzle in the last that game I was talking about, where the DM set up a puzzle to decipher some scrawl that was on the wall, but we thought it was a rhyme. We went on way the wrong track, and just it took like an hour, and finally the DM was just like, "Here's a really big hint." I'm like, "Okay, let's break the log jam here."
Yeah. But with the video games, of course, there's no like DM to sort of push you in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. Some modern games, annoyingly, like God of War Ragnarok, a third-person action adventure, you get to a puzzle, and then your companion who's with you, after like 2 seconds, is like loudly hints at what the solution is. Like, dude, give me some.
It's taking too long.
Yeah, exactly. I spent 2 seconds. Like, take some time. Good Lord. So it's real cool. So for the listeners for Undertale, some of you, if you're here, if you search an Undertale podcast, chances are you've played this game. So I'm sorry in advance because we haven't. Who knows what the hell's going to happen? Final Fantasy 12 podcast sequence was a lot of us fumbling through and giving hints to each other about what we should do next or whatever. So we're going to split up Undertale into 6 key sections and try to record 6 podcasts to cover those sections. Best laid plans. We'll see how it goes, but the 6 sections seem to be based on reading guides and trying not to get too many spoilers. We're going to get to Snowdin. From the beginning of the game to Snowdin was going to be the first section. And then the next section will be getting to Waterfall. The next section will be getting to Hotland. The next section will be getting to Core. The next section will be getting to New Home. And then the next section will be finishing the game. None of those nouns mean anything to me, but by the end of this game, I'm sure they will, or at least I hope they will. So the process as always is to get a podcast a week out there, and we probably get through this in about a month and a half of podcasts. So thanks for being here on the ride. Glad to have you here. If you like us, please rate us on your podcast service of choice. Scott, anything else for the good of the podcast before we sign off?
No, I'm excited to actually play this game and see what everyone's talking about.
Me too. Exactly right. All right. Well, we'll see you all next week when we have actually started the game, and we'll share our thoughts next week.